Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss about memory and learning. So in this particular lecture, we'll discuss what memory is, what is learning, what are the types of memory, what are the different locations where the memory are stored, and the anatomical structures that are involved in the process of memory, and the anatomical structures that are involved in process of learning. So So according to first we have to ask a question: what is learning? So according to Eric Kindle, that was stated in 2000, learning is the process by which we acquire the knowledge about the world. So this is one definition. So it doesn't help us much in knowing what to study. Another definition of Kimball in 1961, he says, learning refers to more or less permanent change in the behavior which occurs as a result of practice. So this is far better than the first definition. Then it tells us that learning is more or less permanent. It won't always be there, but often will. It also tells us that this is something that happens because we practice, repeat something over and over, of, because of which the learning happens. A further definition says learning is either a case of differential strengthening of one from another, a number of response evoked by a situation of need, or the formation of the receptor-effector connection. The first occurs typically in a simple selective learning, and the second is conditioned reflex learning. This was stated by Hull in 1943. It is the strengthening of the existing responses and the formation of new responses to existing stimuli that make the definition unique. So, now what's learning? So it isn't clear that we have an inclusive definition. It appears that learning is the strengthening of existing responses or the formation of new responses to existing stimuli that occurs before a practice or repetition. So if at all it is a practice and the repetition, how much to practice and how much to repeat? That's the question that arises. So sometimes a single practice session is sufficient in avoidance of painful or the noxious stimuli. Sometimes it needs a lot of practice to facilitate learning. So it is not a quantifiable factor that how much to practice to have a learning. What is memory? So this is a very good question that was asked. So again, Kendall in 2000 said memory is a process by which that the knowledge of world is encoded, stored, and later retrieved. By this definition, memory is not a thing, it's a process. Interesting. In another definition, memory is a phase of learning. Learning has three stages. One is acquiring, wherein one masters a new activity or memorizes a verbal material. Second is the retaining. So whatever that is acquired has to be retained. The new acquisition for a period of some time. So if you have learned something that has to be retained for some time, say that a student studies some of the subject that should be retained till the examination, that is retaining. Third is remembering. So if at all it is learned and acquired or remembered, that doesn't help. So it has to be remembered. So remembering is which enables one to produce the learned act or memorized material. In a narrower sense, learning merely means acquiring skills. From these definitions, we'll see that memory has to do with keeping the knowledge someplace and then retrieving it when it is needed. What we don't see here is that the knowledge doesn't have to come into consciousness. So, for example, I have two cars, one with an automatic transmission, one with a gear. I don't have to bring into consciousness the process of for shifting gears when I get into the car. That requires me to do that. I just do it without my conscious mind. So this is what is called as memory. Types of memory. We have classified the memory into two types. One is a declarative memory or explicit memory. Second one is non-declarative memory or implicit memory. So these are the two types of memory. One is declarative and second one is non-declarative or explicit and implicit. So we'll differentiate it. What are these two? We'll see here. I want you to remember learning how to ride a bike. So uh, reason for this is there are two types of memory that occur here. Memory system is a exceedingly complicated. It is a psychologists have divided memory into two. One is this explicit as well as the implicit. So there are two main categories here. So these two are the two forms of memory. So explicit memory is a memory that can be intentionally and consciously recalled. This is your memory of riding a bike and falling over the handlebar and skinning your knee. Other is the implicit memory. What is the function of memory? That we can't retrieve or recall. This is your memory how to ride a bike. For how to balance is often not a visual memory but more like muscle memory. Information that you have to consciously work to remember is known as explicit memory, while the information that you remember unconsciously and effortlessly is known as implicit memory. As any student can tell you, sometimes it takes a lot of work and effort to commit information to memory. When you're studying for a big exam, it might take hours of practice in order to remember what you have studied. However, some other events, detailed and experiences enter our memory with a little or no efforts. For example, on the way to the class, you might hear a catchy pop song on the radio. Days later, you find yourself still humming that same tune. So this is nothing but implicit memory. So for the exams that you have studied is considered as explicit memory that you have to forcefully bring it into your consciousness to remember it. And the second one is implicit memory that you don't have to forcefully bring it into your consciousness. Again, explicit memory is divided into two types. That is episodic memory and the semantic memory. Episodic memory, these are the long-term memories or specific event such as what you did yesterday or your high school graduation. So these are considered to be episodic memories. Second is semantic memory. These are the memories or facts, concepts, names and other general knowledge. Remember examples of the explicit memory. Some tasks that require the use of explicit memory include remembering what you learned in your psychology class, recalling your phone number, identifying who the current president is, writing a research paper, and remembering what time you are meeting a friend to go to a movie, remembering the names and the locations of different countries on a map, recalling an event that happened in the past, recalling all the items of your shopping list, being able to remember the birth dates of friends and family members, remembering an important event from your life such as your school, graduation, wedding, and a notable milestone. Many examples of explicit memory involve textbook learning or experiential memories. These are the things that you consciously need to bring into awareness. Implicit memory. Things that people don't purposely try to remember are stored in implicit memory. This kind of memory is both unconscious and unintentional. Implicit memory is also sometimes referred to as non-declarative memory since you are not able to consciously bring it into awareness, where explicit memory are conscious and can be verbally explained. Implicit memories are usually non-conscious and not verbally articulated. Examples of implicit memory. Some examples of implicit memory include singing a familiar song, typing on your computer keyboard, and brushing your teeth. Riding a bike is another example. Even after going years without riding one, most people are able to hop on a bike and ride it effortlessly. Navigating a familiar area such as your house or a neighborhood, remembering the word to a popular song after hearing the first few notes, recalling how to boil water to fix dinner, knowing how to use utensils, remembering how to drive a car, knowing how to dress yourself each day. So these are some of the examples of implicit memory. Neuroscience of learning and memory. So first we'll see about the explicit memory. Explicit memory is first acquired through one or more of the three polymodal association areas of cerebral cortex, namely prefrontal, limbic, and parieto-occipital temporal lobe. Then the information is transferred to parahippocampal and perihinal cortices. Enterohinal cortexes, dentate gyrus, hippocampus, subiculum, and back to the entorhinal, parahippocampal, and perihinal cortex. So this is the areas that are involved in the process of learning and memory. So regarding the episodic memory, memories of a single event can be stored in multiple locations. This makes sense when it is recalled that a single memory has multiple facets. Each event contains sounds, smell, taste, somatosensory experiences, visual images, and so forth. So all these memory are stored in a different area. So a single event can recall all these areas and the memory is found. Then semantic memory. There is no general semantic or factual. Semantic memory is a factual memory. There is no any general uh, memory store areas here. So not identified. Regarding the implicit memory are stored in differently depending upon how they are acquired. Fear conditioning, that is training that involves use of fearful stimuli, involves amygdala. Operant conditioning involves the striatum and cerebellum. So these are the areas for the implicit memories. The process of learning. So the process of learning, as we have just said earlier, it is a practice and repetition. Neuron in the memory pathway were arranged in a reverberating circuits. In such circuit, one neuron excites another and the another excites one, such that once the circuit is activated, action potential are run around continuously. This is the repetition that occurs. So there will be practice first. So there will be neuronal pathway that is activated. Then there will be repetition. This will be repeated. If this kind of arrangement accounts for the memory, then any event that temporarily stopped activity in circuit should disrupt the memory. That means when there is a continuous circuit that runs, if the circuit is stopped, that means memory is lost. So this makes sense. When an axonal cell of an A neuron excites the cell P and repeatedly and persistently does the same thing by firing it, action potential is generated and which travels through some growth process or metabolic change that occur in the place or one or both the cells. It may be in one cell or both the cell this change may occur, where it starts efficiently doing the same thing again and again. So this is according to Donald Hebb in 1949 psychologist said. So the efficiency increases. So this you have to understand. All the thing that happens is the neuronal communication. So the process of learning and the memory and their remembrance is done through the neuronal circuits. So there has to be two neurons. So one neuron will be firing and another neuron will be receiving. If this happens continuously, and the same time it gives a feedback to the first neuron. So this there will be a circuit, and when the circuit goes on, this circuit goes on moving. So there will be facilitation of this particular impulse. This is nothing but the practice and the repetition that occurs, because of which a memory forms. So this has been given by an example of cell A and cell B. So both has to be identified. So moving on, in a nutshell, so what we have identified, learning is the process by which we acquire the knowledge and about the world. Formation of new responses to existing stimuli that occurs because of practice and repetition. This is what we call it as memory. Memory is a phase of learning. Learning has three stages. One is declarative. So learning has three stages, that is acquiring, remembering. So that we have discussed. So types of memory are declarative, that is we call it explicit, and non-declarative, that is implicit. Information that needs conscious work to remember is known as explicit memory. The information that does not need a conscious remembrance and which can be identified effortlessly is called as implicit memory. So you have to remember explicit memory, implicit memory, declarative memory, non-declarative memory. Types of explicit memory: episodic. These are the long-term memory of a specific event. So second type is semantic memory. These are the memories of facts, concepts, names, and other general knowledge. So neuroscience of learning in the memory, that most of them occur in the cerebral cortex and the hippocampal area. Process of learning neuron in memory pathways which are arranged in a reverberating circuit. That means one neuron is firing, the another neuron is receiving, again the neuron is giving feedback. So this particular circuit continues, and as far as the circuit continues, the repetition and the occurrence of this particular memory occurs, and there will be a formation of the memory. So there will be changes that occurs in the neuronal circuit which forms a memory, which forms a learning process. So this is how learning process is facilitated. The more the repetition or the more the practice, more the memory or more the learning process will be. So this is understanding a understandable fact. So this is how it occurs. So thus we have successfully completed the process of learning and the memory. So we have identified what is learning and what is memory, what is the definition of learning, what is the definition of memory, what is the definition of what are the types of memory, so explicit and implicit, what is the methods of learning, that is acquisition, encoding, and retrieving. Acquisition, gathering, storing, receiving. So these are the three varieties. Then we have identified the types of implicit memory, explicit memory again. Then we have identified what are the structures that are involved in the process of learning as well as process of memory making. Then what are the structures, how a neuronal circuit helps in the repetition and the practice which keeps on facilitating these neurons in producing a memory. So these are the things that we have identified here. So thank you for the patient listening. Thank you, one and all.